Hey guys, Nate Rubin. I'm here again with another little video. Today I'm looking at another plugin, a little mini review for Newfangled's Elevate bundle. It's a mastering processor. I say mastering processor because this is a lot more than just a limiter. It has quite a bit in common with processors like Slate Digital's FGX. And if you, like me, been waiting for FGX2 to come out, this is probably going to hit the sweet spot for you. This is kind of everything that I've been hoping for in an update for FGX2. I'm really impressed with this. It's got a ton of really cool features. Not only as a mastering processor, I can see myself using this on sort of single channel content as well. I'm just going to quickly run through the basics of the plugin and just take a look at what it's doing. If you were lucky enough to pick up the sister plugin or the other half of the bundle, the Equivocate EQ, when they released this, it was actually available for free for a limited time. So if you have that on your iLock, you can actually just upgrade to the full bundle for $99, which I think is very reasonable. So the real star of the show is this multiband or the filter system that they have. So the EQ, it's sort of graphic EQ with filters that can be modified to suit your needs. You can just scroll through them. You can see how the filters work. You set the center frequency and then the crossover points. So the cool thing with this filter on Elevate is you essentially have a multi-band limiter going on here, but with up to 26 bands, which is pretty insane. And it really gives you ability to limit stuff quite loud without really destroying the dynamics in the content that you are processing. I'm just going to run through the basics of the plugin quickly. We'll just look through from the top down to the bottom. It's your plugin load section here. You've got a gain lock feature, which you can scroll through presets without modifying the gains at all. You have a dither built into the plugin. This just selects skins, which are pretty awful, but modern seems to work for me. So, and then also you have this auto output feature, which is essentially like a unity gain control. You can listen to what's happening with the processing without actually increasing the volume at all, which is a really handy feature. Yeah, you have your metering. The input-output is pretty self-explanatory. Gain reduction, you have two different options here. You can have your average gain reduction for all the gain reduction, or you can spread the waveforms out. This dependent on how many bands you are using. And then your filter bank, which we'll come to in a second. Now I've just got a track loaded up in the background here from my new Shadow Chronicles alias. There's nothing much going on there, just a Brainworks Digital V3 Black Box HG2 and a slight bit of compression from the Alpha compressor. So let's check this out. You've got your main parameters section here. This is basically divided into three main submodules, which are the transients, the limiter and EQ, and the clipper. So the main parameters are just kind of condensed the version of some of the controls that you have in each submodule. These are kind of the ones you'd be setting up first, basically. So we'll run through these. You've got your choice in how many bands you're going to be using. I'll come to that in just a sec. Your limiter gain, that's fairly self-explanatory. With our auto enabled, we can then drive the limiter. So you've got your gain reduction happening over here and your stereo metering on the right-hand side there. The speed, that's the limiter speed or the detection speed. Ceiling, also pretty self-explanatory. That's your output ceiling. And then you have the transient emphasis, the adaptive transients, and the amount of drive on the clipper. And then also along the bottom, you have this adaptive gain and adaptive speed, adaptive transients. So what those adaptive controls do, we'll come to that in the separate modules. If we head over to the filter bank, you can see what's happening with the crossover points for each filter. Now you can use a custom setup where you can actually change your crossover points to suit your needs. For the most part, selecting mel spacing, which will just equally space them out over the whole frequency, is fine. You can also select how many bands you want. So if you want a standard 4-band multiband limiter, you can do that. But I find this thing really shines when you're using the full 26 bands like this. It gives you so much control over the individual dynamics of each section of the frequency spectrum. So we'll head over to the limiter EQ section. This is essentially, you've got your primary limiter gain, which is the limiter gain for the whole spectrum, but then you can add or subtract gain on specific bands. So we'll just have a look quickly what's happening here. So the EQ is built into the limiter, and you can essentially drive specific frequencies harder into the limiter or softer as you see fit, which is great for pulling out specific details in a master or in a mix. It's also adaptive. So depending on the range that you set here with the adaptive gain, it will respond differently to different frequencies, and gives you overall it gives you a more uniform control over all your frequency bands. So if you've got perhaps content down in the bottom here that's driving too hard, your limiter is not going to be suffering as much, because it will adaptively adjust the high frequencies then to be limited as they need to be, instead of being lost because of other frequencies being driven too hard. You can then manually adjust the gains for each frequency as well. So you can see there the highs are now being driven a lot harder into the limiter than the lows. These are pretty extreme examples, but I'm just kind of doing that so you can hear what's going on. So I'm not going to spend too much time here. We're just going to head on to the transient section. For me, this is the real star of the show. So again, using the same filtering system that we have here, you can apply transient emphasis, which is essentially like an envelope transient modifier that you can apply to every single band separately. So the adaptive transient controls here basically fades between single band, which will be controlling transients for the entire mix, or for the entire frequency spectrum as a whole. And then you can fade to 100% multiband, which will have transient controls for every specific frequency band you have selected up here. I'll start off clean with no transient modifications happening at all. So you can immediately hear how that's popping, how those transients really pop out. So even when the limiter is driven pretty hard, so we got over 6 dBs of gain reduction happening there. But those transients are still popping out. Again, this is a fairly exaggerated example, but you can hear how effective it is at pulling out specific transients and boosting those. And you see if we dial back to single band, how all of them are suddenly becoming more uniform. So it's crazy effective at maintaining your dynamics while still getting a very loud signal. I was really impressed by the way it handled this. And comparing it to other limiters, I've had a chance to play around with Pro L2 from FabFilter as well. That also now has a dynamic mode, just like FGX's Transient section as well. If we just load up. Here's FGX. It also has this dynamic perception controls that you can add low punch and detail to the tops. Same with Pro L2, you have this dynamic mode limiter now, which essentially does the same thing, but I haven't seen anything incorporated with as much detail as what this plugin does. And yeah, I would definitely check this out. It's an amazing plugin. You'll be really surprised at how effective it is at sort of bringing your audio up to volume without destroying the dynamics at all. Just quickly, lastly, we have the clipper that it runs through. Let me just drive that all the way up. You have a clip shape, and yeah, I like to run this at the end just a little bit, just to kind of push it that extra distance, just to give it a little bit more One thing that I found was missing that I was looking for was the oversampling, but it is in fact oversampling as well. If you're putting 44.1K sample rate or 48K into this, it automatically upsamples inside the plugin. I think if you're using 96K, then it does not upsample. I think that's the limit, but I think it's up to 8 or 16 oversampling that this does. But yes, I mean, this is definitely my new go-to limiter at the moment for my own productions, especially electronic music. You can really push the limits with this without it being detrimental to your audio. So definitely, yeah, check this one out. You can grab it from eventide.com. And yeah. Anyways, if you guys enjoy the video, hit that like button or subscribe to us. We put up videos every now and then, or check out the blog at www.marulamusic.com. I post some blog posts there every now and then, and we have a few freebies and stuff, so check that out, and I'll hopefully see you guys again soon with another video.